Mike Brown, the former FEMA director.
Joining us here is the former FEMA director.
History, I think, was very unkind to you, my friend. Very unkind.
Mr. Brown, thanks for being with us.
This is Michael Brown Unplugged.
Happy Friday, everybody. Welcome to this episode of Michael Brown Unplugged. We're going to get Christian Toto in here in a minute, and we'll do Hollywood and Toto. And I hope to find some lighthearted stories for you on Friday, because that's what Fridays are about. I guess casual Friday doesn't exist anymore. I think now it's like casual every day. But before I do, I want to tell you about a story that comes out of Los Angeles, KTLA Channel 5. It talks about, and before I tell you the story, let me talk about this for a second. When someone gets arrested for a DUI and they have a child in the car, that child gets taken, they call, Child Protective Services, Department of Health and Human Services, whoever it is in your state. And they come and take the child. And they put the child in that custody until they can find another parent or a guardian, a grandparent, or somebody. But that child is separated from that parent at that moment. Or if you're a thug that commits a murder and you get convicted of that murder and you end up in prison and you've got, a couple of rugrats at home, you are separated from that child. Child separation occurs every single day in this country. And I'm not talking about illegal aliens. I'm talking, meth heads or just, white-collar crime, blue-collar crime, whatever kind of crime. If you have a couple of rugrats, they get separated from you while you are incarcerated. Why are we so upset over people who are coming here to enter the country illegally or to seek asylum, which I still maintain needs to be fixed? Why are we so somehow concerned more about those child separations than we are about the child separations that occur every single day in this country? Now let me get to the story. KTLA Los Angeles. 3 fathers. Boy, trial lawyers. I love you. 3 lawyers. It sounds like a joke, right? What do you do with 3 lawyers? I don't know. 3 fathers who were separated from their young children when they tried to migrate to the United States want millions of dollars in compensation from the U.S. government. Let me rephrase that. When they tried to migrate to the U.S., want millions of dollars in compensation from you and me for the toll the months of separation took on their families. There's a concept in the law about assuming the risk. When you assume the risk, let me think of it. I'm trying to think of an example. Anytime that you trespass and you knowingly trespass, and let's say you're trespassing. Oh, Area 51. Remember those goobers that they were all going to meet up on Area 51? And then because they thought, well, there's so many of us, they won't be able to arrest everybody. Well, yeah, the United States government, the Department of Defense can arrest as many people as they want to. But if you know the dangers and you knowingly trespass, you have assumed the risk. And so therefore, when something bad happens, you can't therefore claim that somebody else is liable for your actions when you're the one that endangered yourself by assuming that risk. That's a pretty good layman's explanation of it. And I'm sure the lawyers out there will go, wah, 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 wah. But I think that is a good example. The Southern Poverty Law Center, the Southern Poverty Hate Center, and the law firm of Covington and Burlington filed administrative claims yesterday, seeking damages from the U.S. government on behalf of 3 men who were separated from their children at the border. The separation, according to the lawsuit, caused lasting harm for the families, according to the press release. The filings describe children who cry in the night, refuse to eat, and are fearful of going out, and parents struggling with guilt and anxiety. Tamara and I when we travel, we have well, you won't know who you are. But we have some friends who are scared to death of traveling. They're scared of a lot of things. Tamara and I, on the other hand, I may have told you that one time when we were in Israel, I was with the IDF going down to the Gaza Strip. We had rented a car, so Tamara had the car to herself that day, and Tamara heads off on her own. In fact, she makes it to the Jordanian border. And thank goodness she had the common sense to turn around and head back down toward the Dead Sea. But that's Tamara. That's how we travel. We're adventurous, we're risk takers, and we like to travel independently and live like locals. Our friends, on the other hand, are looking for the Four Seasons. And they're looking for the concierge desk to take care of all their wants and needs. I say all of that because I want you to think about being in an S-hole country. I mean a true S-hole country. El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, right now Venezuela, Yemen, I don't know. Just pick one. The Democratic Republic of the Congo. And you decide to set out on foot with your children, and you're going to cross 2 or 3 borders because you're so desperate to get to the United States. Now, my guess is when the filing describes children who cry in the night, I'm sure there were times that the children cried in the night because they couldn't figure out what the hell their mother or their dad, or for those unaccompanied minors whose parents just shove them onto the bus or shove them onto the train and just say, keep going north. I'm sure those kids cry in the night, refuse to eat, and are fearful of going out. And the parents struggle with guilt and anxiety? Maybe you should have thought about that before you headed out on this journey. Michelle Lapointe, senior supervising attorney at the Southern Poverty Law Center, says, thousands of children, parents, and entire families will suffer the rest of their lives as a result of this administration's intentionally cruel family separations. Well, what about the administration's intentionally cruel family separations when it was the Obama administration? Where were the lawsuits then? The claims are seeking $3 million in compensation per person, or a total of $6 million per separated family. If the government does not respond to the claims within 6 months, the fathers can go on to sue the federal government in federal court. This is a winning political issue for Donald Trump. Now, I've heard over the past couple of days in the mainstream media stories about Donald Trump has not built 1 mile of the border wall that he promised. Well, let's assume for a moment that that's true. I know there has been ongoing capital improvements and ongoing repairs, and that there has been some wall built, and whether that's new wall or replacing old wall, I don't know, I don't care. But if they went to make the argument that Donald Trump hasn't built 1 foot of wall, all he has to do is turn around and point to the United States Capitol and say, and I haven't because they haven't given me the money to do so. They've not given me the authorization to do so. Jay Carey, a partner at Covington and Burling, said, the damage done to these fathers, their children, and their entire families can never be undone. But those responsible for their suffering can and must be held responsible, and a message must be sent, especially to this administration, that such cruelty is unconscionable and will not be tolerated. How about the damage done to the family when they set off on this journey? And now they get separated, or they send their children unaccompanied. Those responsible for the suffering, they assumed the risk. They knew that when they sought asylum, that they were going to be separated. It's not something new. It's been going on for years. You read the story. His 7-year-old son cries himself to sleep. His 9-year-old daughter says she was abused in detention. His 6-year-old daughter shows signs of trauma. And on and on and on and on. Yes, my heart goes out to these individuals because I understand they're trying to escape an S-hole country. But on the other hand, they assumed the risk. Remember, and this has been, seems like it's been maybe not quite 10 years ago. But remember the two people that went hiking, maybe in Afghanistan, and somehow they crossed into the Iranian countryside? And I forget whether they were jailed or executed or what. But they assumed that risk. And I'm pretty adventurous, but I'm not quite sure that I'm ready to pack up the bags and fly to Kabul and get on a donkey or something and start hiking around in Afghanistan. I'm not willing to assume that risk yet. So hang on to your wallets because we've just been sued for about $6 million per family. $18 million. I don't know whether it will go anywhere or not. I haven't read the pleadings. I don't know how much merit there is to the lawsuit. But it's just another example of what we need to do to fix our broken immigration system. Oh, and while we're at it, don't forget, child separation is going on right now. In your state, my state, your city, my city, child separation goes on every single day in this country. Get a grip. Hang on, I'll be right back. I don't know, everything is like, you got iHeart and you got your iPad, you got your iPhone, and you got smart this and smart that, all these smart technologies, the Internet of Things. We have all of this stuff. And I don't think there is no limit to where technology will now take us. But is this what the future will be like? Have we gotten to the point where we're too lazy to actually check if a baby has peed or pooped in their diapers? Well, according to Pampers, it is. This is the free market at work. Because there is now an app that connects to your smartphone and literally tracks your child's urine and bowel movements. Now, remember, I think I mentioned the other day about how cruel life is, that when we're babies, we go through this stage, and then suddenly when we get to a certain biological, chronological age and we're older, it's almost like we become babies again. So I'm thinking that if Pampers is smart, whoever the maker of Depends is, ought to start checking on this. An app that connects to your smartphone and literally tracks your child's urine and bowel movements. Grandpa needs this too. But not only that, the diapers Pampers claims that the diapers will also track your baby's sleep patterns. So kind of like a monitor, but without a camera, which I guess is good because do we really want to see the poopy diaper? Really? Now, where was this created? Last year, Huggies, which is a rival of Pampers, debuted a similar concept in Korea that allows parents to receive texts and alerts when their child poops. You're sitting in the conference room. Maybe it's a shareholders meeting, maybe it's the C-suite, whatever. Maybe it's a partners meeting and you're sitting there and suddenly, because maybe it's your first child. The first child is the perfect child, right? Like me. The first child always gets all the attention. So you're sitting in the meeting and suddenly your phone beeps and you look down. Little Mikey just pooped. Oh, and you can tell the entire meeting. Oh, look, my little boy just pooped. I don't know how to go over. Now, if you're going to get a text message that says your child has pooped, that's actually kind of terrifying because, well, the company basically already has your information. But Pampers stepped it up a notch and created the Lumi, or maybe Lumi, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, Lumi, which apparently already has a wait list ahead of its U.S. launch this fall. Now, who could have ever guessed that diapers needed a waiting list? We are clearly out of our ever-loving minds. The Lumi app, I'll just say Lumi. I think Lumi sounds, because Lumi, poopy, it's all the same, right? The Lumi app includes an activity diaper sensor that secures to a landing on the front of a baby's diaper. So if we adapt this to a geriatric version, what's the landing in the front of my diaper? Well, never insert your own joke. It also comes with a baby monitor and a 10-day supply of diapers. Now, I don't know when was the last time that you had a baby, but a 10-day supply of diapers is what, about 1,000 diapers? Those 10 diapers. It says here 10 diapers. Those 10 diapers are going to be gone. The sensors work with the corresponding app to log the child's pee and identify patterns. Because who doesn't want to know your urinating pattern or your poop pattern? I dare say, what is your poop pattern? Now, of course, the additional packs of Lumi by Pampers, well, that'll be sold separately. The app will display one of 3 diaper statuses: wet, very wet, or dry. Well, wait a minute. What about poop? Parents will, in theory, not have to worry about checking if their toddler is wet or dry, or very wet or dry. Rather, they just look at their phone. We talk about screen time. Here's another reason to look at your screen. Now, as far as pricing, well, that hasn't been released yet, but I bet they're going to cost an arm and a leg. Because, who doesn't want to be cutting edge? So I guess you can say these new smart diapers, they're kind of like those ringing doorbells that beep when somebody's at your door. You can see them outside. Which, thankfully, there's no camera or video monitors on these diapers itself because, well, that might be kind of gross. But, well, no, I'm not going to go there. But still, I don't know. This kind of gives me goosebumps. Are we just going to ignore the security and privacy of the child? Is there nothing sacred anymore? If you have a dog and a baby, particularly if you have a female dog that has had pups, they are incessant about letting you know when a baby has a dirty diaper. Isn't having a dog much more fun than having an app on your phone? Would you buy one of these? What if you don't have Wi-Fi? Baby may go around with poop for days, because that'll be the next thing. The next thing will become so dependent upon the Lumi that when our phones go dead, or we can't find our phones, or we smash our phones like I did the other day, the baby may have poopy diapers and we won't know it, because we will soon forget how to check the diaper. I said this to a friend of mine the other day. I don't know. Oh, I know. It's because I was having lunch with a friend over where our son lives, over in that part of town. And I said to my friend, I said to Todd, my son just lives right over there. And at that very moment, I realized I have no clue what his home address is. I couldn't tell you. If you put a gun to my head right now and was going to pull the trigger, if I didn't give you my son's street address, I couldn't tell you. However, I can remember my grandparents, and they've been gone for decades. I can still tell you what their home phone number was. Of course, my mom's still alive, so I still know that home phone number. But I don't know my son's cell phone number, his home number, his lab number. I don't know my daughter's cell phone. I don't think they have a home number. I don't know my son-in-law's or daughter-in-law's cell phone numbers. I know Tamara's cell phone number. Other than that, it's because we are so dependent upon our smartphones that we no longer have to use neurons to remember that stuff. So will it be that at some point we will forget how to check the baby's diaper? Oh, are we supposed to do that? Well, I didn't get a text message. How am I supposed to know if little Bobby Sue or Billy Bob or Bubba or whatever you name your kids these days? No, it's Weasel or something. I don't know. How do we know if they've pooped? Lumi. I know you're going to buy one. I know you will. I know you've heard the term hangry. A combination of angry and hungry. Tamara gets hangry. Oh, the whole family knows. We can tell the minute that the hangry gene kicks in. We got to pull over and find some place to eat. Stat. Hangry is defined as It's when you're so hungry that it makes you so angry that you will basically do anything to get a hold of something that you can quickly munch on. Well, a woman in Georgia is the perfect example of that word. All she wanted was some delicious French fries. So she drove through a McDonald's drive-thru only to be let down. Unfortunately, now I find this hard to believe, but I've checked it out and apparently it's a true story. The fast food restaurant slipped up and gave her cold fries instead by accident. How barbaric. According to McDonald's in Garden City, Georgia, the woman had previously ordered food from the restaurant and quickly left. She then came back to complain about the cold French fries while holding a gun. The manager, who was probably scared off his butt, quickly went into the kitchen to get a fresh order. But this woman was just not having it. So she decided to follow him inside and shot around into the floor. Now that's how you get attention. And I guess that's how you get your French fries. The manager gave her her fries and offered her a refund, which she obviously took before leaving and before starting a manhunt. The Garden City police later located and apprehended 27-year-old Lillian Chantel Tarver for several alleged driving offenses. But she was also held on armed robbery, aggravated assault. Now, I don't have to tell you again, really? You know what aggravated assault is, right? That's when you're just really mad and you assault somebody. Fleeing a police officer for a felony offense, possession of a firearm during an attempt to commit several felonies, and, I think this is overcharging, reckless conduct. What was reckless? She goes to McDonald's. She wants some hot, fresh French fries. She goes out to her car and realizes the French fries are cold. So you go back in with your gun. You follow the manager back to where the fries are. You get your fries. You shoot a round into the floor. What's reckless? She shot the round into the floor. She didn't wildly shoot it. She shot it into the floor. Oh, and they armed robbery for the whole French fry incident. Now listen, the fact that you have to take a gun to McDonald's because your fries were cold tells me that, one, you eat way too much fast food. That's borderline obsessive compulsive behavior. And something is seriously wrong with you. McDonald's fries they're pretty good, right? Everybody likes McDonald's fries. But I don't think, I may be wrong, but I don't think McDonald's French fries are worth jail time or those charges. You're basically getting arrested for being a dumbass and taking a gun inside a family place. Well, I can't complain about that. I've certainly taken the guns. Well, anyway. Why don't you just go home and heat? No, you don't want to go home and heat them up. Warm. When you get French fries, have you ever done this? You get French fries. Like sometimes when Tamara's not here, and back when I was on radio, it doesn't happen that much now. I'd run through Chick-fil-A or someplace and bring it home, and by the time you get home, they're just not the same. But you put them in the microwave. No, don't do it. Just eat them there. And if you get cold French fries, don't take your concealed carry into the McDonald's and chase the manager around. Man, we're just nuts. We are just totally nuts. So did you know that birds aren't real? No, they're not real at all.
Maybe you've seen the billboard near the Highland Strip or heard the story on Wednesdays Live at 9. A campaign called Birds Are Not Real brings its efforts to the Mid-South.
And this morning we are joined by one of the messengers of the movement. Peter McIndoe is here to tell us how this all came about. We want to emphasize you were not the founder.
No, ma'am.
So how did you become aware of it? What is the message of the movement?
The message of the movement is essentially to spread awareness that from 1959 through 2001, the government mercilessly genocided over 12 billion birds and simultaneously replaced them with surveillance drones in disguise that film us every day as equally as these cameras are filming us right now.
So what do you have to back that up?
To back that up, I have as much evidence as the birds have provided. There's so much.
So this is really satire. I mean, you don't really believe that happened, correct? This is a satirical campaign to make the point that what? You're looking at me like, no, it's not satire. I really do believe this.
Honestly, it's kind of offensive.
I love that. He's serious. He's serious. Holy moly. By the way, let me just insert a little.
I'm not allowed to be frivolous.
I'm sorry. Siri just came on. Siri, go away. I'm not talking to you. So in Denver, we have so many Canadian geese that they've decided to start culling them and then taking the meat and giving it to homeless shelters and other nonprofit organizations to feed hungry people. And somebody has filed a lawsuit to stop the killing of the geese. I'm now convinced that the killing of the geese in Denver is a part of this campaign out of Memphis, Tennessee. This guy's right, because now it's happening in Denver too. Oh, you think I'm paranoid, right? You think oh no, I don't have a tinfoil hat on. Oh no. They started killing the birds and replacing them with drones. And that's what they're doing in Denver too.
So it's not satire.
I don't think you would say that if I said birds are real. You know, I don't know why the other side of the argument can't be treated with equal respect.
Except that before we came out on air, you said this is a satirical message. So what is
I never said that.
So what point are you trying to make here? I mean, and why did this movement come about and how?
Well, this movement came about in 1976, just to avoid any, liberal media hit job. This didn't start with me. This started in 1976, when whispering started coming about from the White House, saying that birds were in the process of being murdered on a mass level. When this started coming about, that's when the movement began. This movement is reactionary. We really didn't start this. The government started this.
Here's what I really want to know. What I really want to know is what producer, what newsroom assignment editor said, go talk to this guy? Who put him on air? When you see the birds, they're not really birds. The government murdered all of the birds starting in 1976, and those are all drones. Now, I know that you thought we really didn't have commercially available drones until just recently, but oh no, I can tell you, as the former director of FEMA, that we had a secret black op program from 1976 to kill all the birds and replace them with drones. So I want everybody, after you listen to the podcast, to go outside and look up in the air. Those are drones. Those aren't birds. And then I want you to go tell all of your friends that you heard it on the Michael Brown Unplugged podcast, that the birds are gone. Hollywood and Toto coming up next. So as promised, Christian Toto has shown up again. Thank you for doing that, by the way.
Yeah.
We should sometime. I
had to clear my social calendar.
We should sometime explain to people what a screw up today has been.
Whew. I think therapeutically, I'm not ready to talk about it yet. It's just been that kind of a day.
So you sent me a view clip, which I greatly appreciate. Neither one of us have heard this.
I just saw the quick little buzzwords, Mueller, Joy. I saw a snippet of a snippet, and I thought, oh, it's gold. It's gold. And I don't want to spoil it. It's like you don't want to open up your Christmas on Christmas Eve. You want to open them the Christmas morning. Does that make sense?
Well, some people open packages on Christmas Eve evening, and
That's
some
true.
open packages on Christmas morning.
That's true. But I think I'm hoping my analogy and or metaphor, I'm too exhausted to figure out which is the proper
I know.
use.
Aren't we both? We're both just like, if they could actually see us right, if everybody listening could just see us right now, it's kind of sad, actually.
I'm like Rocky in the 12th round, except I'm not going to rise up and knock out Apollo Creed.
No, in fact, we're both looking for the couch right now. Just go over and curl up on the couch under a blanket and call it a day.
I want Adrian to throw in the towel.
So the headline over at Newsbusters is Joy Behar Republicans aren't patriotic. They're disrespectful. I can't even spit it out tonight. Joy Behar, Republicans aren't patriotic. They're disrespectful to veterans. Lock up children.
Well, they're still on the Trump locks up children. So do you think that Joy doesn't realize that Obama had similar policies, or do you think that she blocks that out? Has no one reminded her of that? I'm really fascinated by that part of it, because I can totally get anyone who says, kids shouldn't be in cages. It's the wrong thing. It's a very valid argument. No one wants to mistreat children, but there are situations and circumstances and context there. But much more importantly, Obama did it. And no one said a syllable about it. And no one is still saying a syllable about it. And has any reporter knocked on Obama's door and said, Mr. President, do you have a comment about why you kept kids in cages too? That doesn't happen, right?
You know what your problem is?
Which one?
Well, the one right now.
Okay.
The one right now. First two things, when you said, we certainly don't want to do like bad things to children, I kind of chuckled under my breath because I thought, well, Christian and his poor children, because so you're so cruel to your kids.
After all they put me through, they should be put in cages.
And then you're way too rational. Hasn't anybody gone and knocked on his door and said, Mr. President, do you have a comment about putting kids in cages like you did?
It seems pretty obvious, doesn't it?
I would think that when you are, I have a hard time understanding if you are the executive producer, or you're forget it, you're the president of CBS, ABC, NBC, you're the president of CNN, what all of these guys. Don't you think that they would, regardless of whether it's Fox News with a conservative bent or CNN with a liberal bent, don't you want to make news to draw the eyeballs?
That's an excellent point, because that interview, no matter what Obama says, is huge. It's an exclusive. It gets bounced around the blogosphere. You get a lot of attention. And by the way, I'd ask two questions to the former president. Mr. President, what's with the kids in cages under your administration? And also, not only did you not endorse your vice president, Joe Biden, you sat on your hands while Kamala Harris essentially said he was a racist. Any comment? I didn't go to journalism school, so maybe I'm just crazy.
I was going to say, when you try to play like Mr. Journalism, it's just so rational that it's sad.
Work.
It's sad. Okay, so neither one of us. This is virgin soundbite. Neither one of us has heard it. You'll give me the signal when you want to stop.
Sure.
It's a minute. It's 91 seconds long.
Oh, so it's long. It's gloriously long.
Right. So 91 seconds, a minute, 31 seconds. So I figure this is going to take us like the next 3 hours.
Get into the pot of coffee brewing.
And they're talking to, what's his name? I recognize the face. Oh, Dan Abrams. Remember, he used to be the, maybe still is, I don't know, the legal commentator for MSNBC or something. Used to have like a legal show or something on one of the cable shows.
Kind of a dapper-looking fellow.
Okay, whatever. Whatever. I'm not going to go there. And this video is frozen at the beginning, so I can start it.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to say something really tacky.
Oof.
Joy looks like feces. When and it can happen to anyone. When you're videoing something and then you stop and freeze frame it, you might catch somebody with a funny look, doing an odd gesture or whatever.
Yeah.
But right here, she's looking down. Her jowls and cheeks are just sagging. Her hair is a mess. She looks ragged.
I have to say, I think that she looks wonderful for her age. I think she's in her 70s. And I also have to say that I think the Trump toll maybe is finally wearing her down, where sort of the ugliness that she's about to share, because I'm pretty sure it's ugly. Sometimes how it reflects upon you, sort of like the inside outside kind of a thing. Because I think that she looks much younger than her years, but I suspect maybe that's all crumbling down. I don't know. I wouldn't play the feces card, but
when you and I were talking earlier on the phone and I hung up, so I don't remember who it was, but some Democrat made the comment that now, after post-Mueller hearing, the only way to now remove Donald Trump from office is to have an election.
That's crazy. That'll never work.
I know. I thought, wow, isn't that the way it's supposed to work? Master the obvious. Let's have an election.
I'm sure if that person had the chance to say that quote again, they wouldn't.
It also said to me, so when you say, so now the only way to get him out of office is an election, that's all you have been doing since November 8 or 6 or whatever it was, 2016. Mm-hmm. That's all you have been doing is trying to remove a duly elected president that you thought there was no chance in hell of him ever ascending to the Oval Office.
It's true. I think I was among that group, by the way. I was not rooting for Hillary. I didn't vote for Hillary, but I thought there was zero chance of Trump winning. My crystal ball was broken and cloudy and everything.
I was the same way. He wasn't my first choice, but he was obviously my choice when he got the nomination. But I really didn't think he was going to win. And then as I started watching the returns, I was like, holy crap, he's going to win. But I also remember, look, I really never expected John McCain to win. I didn't think that was going to happen. But I also remember as I watched the returns come in back in 2008, I remember watching those and thinking, oh, this is going to be rough. 4 years of this guy, if you really listened to anything he said, if you really watched what he said, if you read any snippets of his books, this guy is a far hardcore lefty Marxist. And so this is going to be rough. But I didn't spend the next 8 years. I mean, I wanted to fight him on every policy level possible, but I accepted that he won the election. They never accepted.
We saw something similar with when President George W. Bush won. There was the Florida kerfuffle,
right?
But there were a lot of people who just never accepted him, and I think I think it was Matt Damon who even didn't really believe the results of the 2004 election when he won again. I mean, so there is I think it's a recent history of we don't believe it when Republicans win, and it just got worse with Trump because it was so unlikely.
Right, and it was the first woman president, she's Secretary of State, former First Lady. There was just all of this built in. Just why are we even holding an election?
That's right. The narrative was there.
Yeah,
narrative. That's all that matters.
All right. Okay. Do you want to start? Are we subconsciously trying to avoid this for some reason? Because it's always so enjoyable.
Joy.
Okay, here we go.
Respectful to veterans in this country. First, it was John Kerry, swift boating him, a wounded veteran of the Vietnam War. Then it was Meg's dad, John McCain. His service to the United States was minimized and made fun of basically by this guy. And now this, a guy who served in Vietnam. And President Bone Spurs did not serve in Vietnam, and they have the nerve to back him instead of this veteran. It really is upsetting. I don't want to hear the Republicans say that they are the most patriotic party anymore. I don't want to hear it. Or family values as long as they're locking up children. I don't want to hear it anymore.
And there's no evidence.
Okay, I got to stop. You didn't put your hand up.
Yeah.
There
was so much there. I think my circuits in my brain is overloaded.
Yeah.
But you go.
Okay, so... Well, now I've kind of lost my train of thought.
Well, I will say that John McCain was attacked savagely when he ran for office by the Democrats, who seemed to not really care that he was a war veteran. I remember horrible things said about him. Did they call him Nazi and/or Hitler? I'm not sure if they played.
I'm not sure Hitler was in vogue at that time. Hitler's only become in vogue lately, but it was
so cool now.
They loved John McCain when he was in the Senate because he was a maverick, and John McCain played up to that, thinking that he might actually have the mainstream media and these yahoos on his side. And then once he got the nomination, they just turned like a dime and boom, ripped him apart. It's insane. It's just insane. It's insanity.
That he is a Trump hater.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. You play it. We're good.
Okay. So let me back up just a little bit. Dan Abrams now has a retort.
Hear it anymore.
And there's no evidence that he is a Trump hater. that he's an anti-Trumper, et cetera. And he's the one leading the investigation. Look,
I would tell you yesterday's testimony and hearing is evidence that he's not a Trump hater. Because if he hated Trump, he could have gone in there and he could have done something very different than what he actually did.
Absolutely.
Whoa, wait a minute. At the beginning of the soundbite, she was saying that the Republicans were horrible to Robert Mueller, who served in Vietnam, and so somehow they were unpatriotic by actually asking him legitimate but yet tough questions, that he was unable in some cases, legally unable, and in other cases unwilling, for whatever reason, to answer the questions. And now she comes right back and says, well, wait a minute. He must not be a Trump hater because he had an opportunity to rip him apart. Well, how about Bob Mueller was just doing what he thought his job was?
Yeah, this is the Democratic playbook now, where if you're a woman of color on the left, any criticism of you is racist. And now if you're a war veteran on the Democrat side, any criticism of them is unethical, immoral, unpatriotic. It's the game they play. They play the card back and forth. And of course, if it's Ted Cruz or it's Marco Rubio being attacked, their people of color status is stripped immediately because they have an R in front of their names.
By the way, I've got this freeze framed again. And,
oh, no.
And now I'm looking at poor Meghan McCain. Oh. And at this point, she has her arms kind of crossed, kind of holding her hands in each hand, and her head is down like she's praying. And I'm sure her prayer is, "Dear God, deliver me from this."
She's clicking her red heels 3 times.
That's right. Okay.
And by the way, if he was a Trump hater, he wouldn't have in the report said, you know what, I'm not going to decide whether a crime was committed here. You know why? Because if you read the report, it is clear they believe that the elements were there for obstruction of justice. So there's an argument that Mueller did Trump a huge favor by not declaring that in the report. So this idea that he's sort of out to get Trump, just doesn't make any sense. Now, with regard to his staff, you can have different discussions about that.
Well,
are they all ignoring the fact that it was very clear that Robert Mueller had no information or connection or knowledge of the report that bears his name? I think that's a pretty important little nugget that came out of the last couple of days.
You may or may not have seen my tweet, but my tweet was, because the Office of Special Counsel was like a law firm, and Bob Mueller was like the senior partner.
Uh-huh.
And I made the comment that if I had hired that firm to represent me and the senior partner had shown up and performed as Bob Mueller did, I would have been filing numerous bar complaints and a lawsuit for legal malpractice.
And by the way, I am not a legal mind, but if there's ever a Toto report, I'm pretty sure I'm going to read it once or twice and be fairly familiar with the contents.
I hope so. And by the way, a Toto report sounds really good.
Drudge, look out.
The Toto report. Well, that was kind of anticlimactic.
It was. And I think I've been absorbing a lot of Joy Behar sound bites over the last few weeks, and she's just unhinged. But it does remind me of the people who are still clinging to the Mueller, the report, the fact, you really need to read it, you need to hear him. And then even after that performance, which was like a frail old man who just wandered in. I mean, that sounds cruel, and I'm not trying to be cruel, but who thought it was a good idea for him to put him up to this? The whole thing was just bizarre. And maybe the fact that he's been so quiet and behind the scenes and withdrawn, which we all took as sort of either masterful or mature or sophisticated, was just that he couldn't put a couple of words together.
And I think, too, he allowed the team to be assembled without much input from himself, and he saw himself as he either saw himself as a figurehead or he allowed himself to become a figurehead, and he really wasn't involved much at all, I don't think, in the day-to-day operations of that office.
Could he have said, listen, I think the best person to answer these questions is my colleague so-and-so, or would we have not stood for that? Do we need to see him because he was so attached to it?
Oh, I think they wanted him because I think they thought he was going to come in and be the Bob Mueller of 10 or 15 years ago, and he was going to be strident, and he was going to be strong, and he was going to be forceful, and he was going to come out swinging about, hey, we didn't indict the president because of this Office of Legal Counsel opinion that says you can't indict a sitting president. And he even had to backtrack on that after being asked that from Ted Lieu. It was just pathetic. And I think that what we see, I think the reason we're kind of let down by Joy is because Joy personifies that letdown that they felt after his performance. She had nothing other than to go after him. She actually went after him.
And Republicans in sort of the most clunky way possible, too. We're not patriotic.
Right.
I mean, just sort of mixing different people. And listen, Trump said lousy things about McCain. I don't defend it. It was terrible at the time. It's terrible now. But he doesn't represent the entire GOP. If he does something untoward, it doesn't mean that, Republicans in general hate the military. I mean, it's obviously not. I mean, we just saw Republicans mostly cheering the 4th of July parade, which is uber patriotic, and almost every liberal was slamming it because Trump was associated, obviously. But it certainly wasn't the brightest day for Democrats when it comes to patriotism.
No, you're right. Well, I've had enough of that. And you? What? I'm ready to move on. Look, it's my podcast, and I know this is the Hollywood and Toto segment of this podcast, but I got a headache, and I've just had it.
I always defer to you, boss.
Then let's move on to. By the way, let's move on to your website.
Okay.
HollywoodandToto.com. This is a great story. The headline is, "These conservative artists defied liberal gatekeepers." You really are a good headline writer.
Well, thanks. Well, it was funny. This was a story that was based on the movie Unplanned, which played in America, did fairly well, and now is in Canada, but it's meeting all sorts of resistance. There were 2 theaters that canceled their screenings because of death threats. Other theater chains have been under attack for even showing it. So it's been very controversial. Then, from what I understand, it's done well in limited release, but then the theaters that were showing it basically are shutting it down, not going to show anymore. So what the creators of the movie are doing is they're actually letting it be licensed to be shown literally in churches and using that as sort of the theatrical experience. And it's a great match. And it sparked my thought of, well, that's a great way to work around the system. Who else is doing that? And then I talked about Gosnell movie, which they had a crowdfunding campaign. Right. It kind of worked the indie circuit. And even Nick DiPaolo is a very funny comedian. He just put out his new special on YouTube free of charge. Now, he says on his website, hey, if you'd like to kind of contribute to me, have at it. But he could have, in theory, went to Netflix or Hulu or Amazon Prime and said, hey, here's my new special. Do you want it? But I'm pretty sure Nick is savvy enough to know that they wouldn't go near it because it was very politically incorrect and it was right of center like he is. So he said, hell, I'm just going to go right to the people.
Yeah. I'm looking at the in your article, you have the trailer for Unplanned. I'm just kind of chuckling to myself because it says, in theaters everywhere. Well, with the exception of this one and 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 this one.
Yeah. And by the way, Unplanned really faced a storm. They tried to get music for the film, and many music publishers would not let them. They tried to advertise on certain cable channels, and most of the cable channels said, no, thank you. It was rated R, even though it is not a rated R movie. I mean, you go up and down the line. They really just faced a wave of things that most movies don't experience. I mean, movies struggle to get made. The funding is an issue. You got to get the right casting involved. It's always tough to get a movie made into the public. But what they experienced was well beyond that. And they're the little engine that could.
So, and I haven't seen Unplanned yet. Is it still in the theaters, or am I going to have to wait now till it's on demand somewhere?
Yeah, it ran its cycle theatrically in the U.S., and I don't think it's available online or via home video yet. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's not quite there yet. But if it's not, it'll be there pretty soon.
Okay, well, make a notation to yourself to remind me to look for it at some point, because you know me, after we finish this, I'll forget about it.
That's right.
So you got to remind me about it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I see you making a note right now.
Send the ambulance to Michael Brown's home.
All right, so we kind of did these out of order. We should have done David Spade next, I think.
That's okay. But we can jump into that right now.
Yeah. So the headline is David Spade's new late night show to avoid Trump bashing. Am I to believe that?
That's a great question because we've seen that before. When Jim Jeffries was a pretty funny guy, an Aussie comic, when he had his own show, the part of the framing of it on Comedy Central was we're not going to be Trump obsessed and blah, blah, blah. And then he not only insulted Trump up probably every week, but he had said some really cruel things to say about the First Lady, Melania Trump. So a lot of times what they do is they say, hey, we're not going to be like this, and then they're exactly like this. I remember when Michelle Wolf came out. She was an unknown comic. She got a show on Netflix, and the press release said it's not going to be left or right. It's going to be about funny. And then she came out, and of course she did the White House Correspondents' Dinner last year, and it was as far left and as angry as any comedian could ever do.
Yeah, it wasn't funny.
And then the show was just completely left of center and completely angry and completely vicious, and it was completely canceled within a few weeks. So what you're saying is true. Yes, the David Spade show, which actually comes out on Monday, could be a respite from politics and anti-Trump stuff. But I'll believe it when I see it. I hope he's right. I hope he's telling the truth. I hope he's being square with us. But I got to see a first few episodes before I'm kind of gonna tout that party line.
So 2 questions. So here's what he said in an interview with the senior TV editor of Variety magazine. I don't want half the crowd tuning me out. I'm just not that smart, and there are other guys doing it better. Well, that's kind of an interesting follow-on. I still like to make fun of everyone and what they're doing, but it's more good-natured. But when people do things, I think it's fair game to make a few jokes, and then you move on. Not too personal, of course. So now I'm a little dubious when he says, I don't want half the crowd tuning me out. I'm just not that smart, and there are other guys doing it better. Does that mean I'm going to try, or they really do it better? And that almost indicates to me that he might be a lefty, but he's wanting to find a broader audience.
I mean, that's a very smart
believe
approach,
that.
What he said.
Yeah.
I think what he's also saying is that he is not an established political comedian. He's never been that guy. And that if he kind of wades into the I'm left of center like Colbert, well, Colbert is better at it. That's what I'm thinking he's saying.
They've been doing it forever, yeah.
Exactly. Like that's their shtick. That's their model. They've been doing it for years. They know what they're doing. They know what the audience likes. And he isn't that guy. So if he kind of does it and is mediocre at it, well, then people will just switch over to anything else because I'll just pick the guy who does it better. So I think that's an honest statement. But I also suspect that there may be a lot of pressure in the studio, outside the studio, who knows? That hey, David, that was a cute couple weeks, but Trump just did something. We want you to make fun of him. We'll see. But it would carve out a unique niche. It would certainly speak to people who loved Saturday Night Live and loved his generation of talent and just are exhausted by the current SNL model and exhausted by the Colberts of the world. Yeah. I'd have to think that there are people out there that approach would appeal to. I just don't know if Comedy Central is really deep in their hearts committed to that.
It's an 11:30 p.m. program. Will still feature a monologue, guests, and field reports. The former star of Saturday Night Live will focus more on talking with a panel about popular culture and digital happenings.
That sounds like Hollywood speak, doesn't it?
Total Hollywood speak.
We'll talk about digital happenings.
Digital happenings.
What happened in the digital today?
Okay, well, so you will stay up at 11:30 and let me know, right?
Yeah, I'm going to watch the whole episode, which I rarely do. I usually watch little snippets, but I like David Spade. I think he's funny. You know, for a while he had a very snarky segment. Gosh, the name of the segment on Saturday Night Live escapes me, but one of his most famous jokes was he showed a picture of Eddie Murphy, and Eddie Murphy was not at the top of his game anymore when he showed the picture, and he looked at the picture and said, "Oh, look, Mom, a falling star." And I'm pretty sure that Eddie Murphy was furious with that comment. Oh. I get it, but them's show business, and his star was falling, and it was true, and it was delivered beautifully, but it was snarky. And the sense I get from Spade today is that he's older, he's wiser, he knows how bloody hard it is to be famous and be famous for a while in Hollywood, and I think I don't think he would tell that joke again. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with a joke. It's a tough joke.
Right.
It's clearly a rough one. But
Speaking of Eddie Murphy, so Jerry Steinfeld's out with his new season of comedians in cars getting coffee.
Uh-huh.
I'm addicted to this show, and there was a season that was pretty bad where I thought they were pretty arrogant and full of themselves, and then I think he backed off that. And the last few seasons have been really entertaining. Some really good comedians, but the first one I saw for this new season is with Eddie Murphy, and I was stunned by the honesty of Eddie Murphy about his career and why he hasn't been kind of out in the limelight doing things, because he's not quite sure what he wants to do yet. And whatever he does, he wants to make sure that he does it right and that he does it the best that he can.
Interesting. Do you know that there's been talk, I don't know if it's been cemented yet, that he's circling with Netflix to do maybe more than one comedy special, stand-up comedy by Eddie Murphy, which is what I grew up on. It's the best. And there was a number that was bandied about. They said 70 million. Now, again, reading the reports thoroughly, it felt like maybe that's not the exact figure, but I also suspect it's going to be a very large amount because he's not done stand-up for years, if not maybe decades.
And it's interesting because Seinfeld asked him in this episode whether they bantered back and forth with each other about getting back up on the stage. And they talked about the comedy clubs in New York and how much fun that was. And he intimated that he wants to go back and do that again.
It's a little bit of a sort of a segue here, but Steve Martin has a book, I believe it's called Born Standing Up, and it's about his early days of stand-up comedy, and it ends with him retiring. Now, I don't believe he's ever done full comedy shtick again in that fashion. He'll tell a joke here or there. He does his banjo performances across the country. But he retired from the stand-up circuit at a very, very early age. And thinking about him and also Eddie Murphy, what if Eddie Murphy, who is still a fairly young man, what if he doesn't have it anymore? What if he's moderately funny? What if the fire that used to burn so brightly within him is just not there? Because sometimes as you get older, that young man fire just kind of withers out.
Well, as I recall that episode, they talked about going back into some of the small clubs as kind of just dipping your toe in the water again.
Yeah, see how it feels and see how the crowd reacts and see how you react. And maybe he should do that and honestly assess where he stands now. Because I would, as a fan, I would hate to see him come back on Netflix, get a bazillion-dollar contract, and then just be mediocre. And I'm thinking, remember Delirious? Remember Raw? That's not him anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that's the fear and it's like if the Beatles ever got back together, if any big group does that, they always have the chance that they could taint what they once were, the magic that was good, that was there and no longer there.
You know, by the way, not to pick on you, but you know the Beatles can't get together again.
I know, but for years there was talk about it.
I just look the way the day's gone.
What happened to John?
The way the day's gone, I'm just giving you a hard time. I'm just giving you a hard time. So I have a question. Have you gotten your Brazilian wax today?
You know, I didn't, but it is on my agenda, and I think I'm going to have like a whole new spirit, a whole new sense of self after I get it done. I think it's kind of like a massage.
Seriously, it's like a massage down there?
Sort of.
It's like a massage down there? Is that what you're telling me?
Soothing, it's excruciating pain.
You know where they do the Brazilian wax, right?
South of the border?
Yeah, south of the border. Soothing? Have you? Okay, so I've got to ask. Are you speaking from experience?
No.
Okay.
I'm speaking from delirium. I know the story that's coming up next. So
how do you pronounce?
I'm trying to delay it as much as possible.
Is it Gervais? Is that how you pronounce it? Ricky's last name?
Ricky Gervais.
Gervais.
Yeah.
Gervais.
And by the way, when I was a younger man, people said, "You look like Tom Cruise." Now you look like Ricky Gervais.
Wait a minute. Let me look here.
I'm heading south as well.
Move that microphone just a little bit. Let me see here. Let's see. I can force it. Yeah, I can force it. I can force it there. So he's now Ricky Gervais is now a transphobic by the LGBT activists after he defended the right of women not to wax the testicles of a transgender person who identifies as a woman. Now, I talked about this earlier in the week, this story. And I said, here's where we now are in our society. We talk about a woman going in to get her testicles waxed.
Continue.
No, that's just it. That's all you need to know. That's it. A woman and her testicles. A woman and her testicles. It's 2019.
The thing that's interesting about this story is that Ricky Gervais.
Really? What is interesting about this story?
Because his politics don't align with your politics, nor mine. But he's been very, very strong on the free speech front, and I've applauded him endlessly for that.
Good.
And he also seems to have a dollop of common sense about him. And that's made him the target, where he's now a transphobe for saying what seems to be a fairly reasonable situation. But that's where we are. And again, another good example of what he's up to is that I don't think anyone is canceling him. I don't think he's losing gigs for it. He's speaking up, speaking out, not apologizing, not backpedaling, and realizing that the people who are very, very angry with him constitute a very, very small percentage of people. And I think he's going to be just fine, and good for him for standing up and saying, hey, common sense, here's the tweet, have at it.
And if more comedians and actors and actresses would do that, we'd have less and less of this faux outrage all the time.
I completely agree. The more people stand up, the more they realize it's all a bunch of gobbledygook. But it's the exception and not the rule. We talked, I think, about Scarlett Johansson buckling not once but twice to the PC scolds.
Oh, yeah.
I've seen Chris Pratt do it. Almost everyone does it. They're just so afraid. And that's the sign of the times. But there are a few people like Adam Carolla, Ricky Gervais, that just say, hey, blank you. These are my thoughts. Take them or leave them. And that's the way it should be.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for coming on tonight.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Anytime.
All right. We'll do it again next
survived.
week. We did. We'll do it again next week. All right. Oh, we should mention, by the way, be sure and follow Christian on Twitter at Hollywood and Toto, and go to this website, hollywoodandtoto.com, and sign up for, your spam emails.
And you'll learn all about the fellow from Africa who's got his massive fortune he wants to give to you.
That's right. Yeah. You just automatically forward those to your list, right?
Yes, perfectly legit.
Good for you. All right. Well, I'll talk to you next week. Take care.
All right. Bye.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening to this episode of Michael Brown Unplugged. Everybody have a great weekend, and I'll talk to you Monday.